Okay, back again. Thomas, thank you. Great. We're going through these questions. These are questions I asked that you would do, and you have now responded. You're in Germany. I'm here in United States. We're 6 hours difference, about 4,000 miles away. This is the beauty of technology. And here's a question that is brought forward by Max Schön. And he asks this. This is great stuff, but are we sure that all, and he's putting in parentheses, ALL, of the Quran comes from one place in parentheses and one time in parentheses? Didn't Odon Lafontaine show very well that there are a lot of later interference which came into the text at a later time? Let me just go, and since he did refer to Odon, if it's okay, let me tell you what Odon did say. And Odon did confront this. And this is what Odon says, Lafontaine, who's also one of our contributors here on PfanderFilms. He says, I still don't believe in the existence of an Ur-Qur'an and even an Aramaic Ur-Qur'an. Ur-Qur'an means an archetype, a proto-Qur'an that you've mentioned in your earlier videos. What we find, he says, in the Quranic text is mostly a gathering of sermons, of proclamations, of instructional discourses, of narratives, mostly biblical commentaries, of exhortations. These are not texts that were written by writers, but oral proclamations that were uttered by preachers. The Quranic text, he goes on to say, is made out of preparation notes and instructions for those proclamations. Some of those proclamations had Aramaic sources, which inspired the preachers, which the preachers adapted from Aramaic into Arabic. These sermons were written as Arabic notes and drafted by people who had an Aramaic mind, an Aramaic way of thinking, who had Aramaic references, and who sometimes did not translate what they had in their Aramaic mind into Arabic, but directly wrote the Aramaic words using Arabic alphabet. Transliteration instead of translation is what he's trying to get at. The existence of an Ur-Qur'an or a proto-Qur'an is an interesting hypothesis, but it cannot explain why the Quranic text looks like this. Partly like a collection of reports and write-ups of imprecations and sermons, partly like a sort of instructions, manuals for sermons, teachings, and proclamations. In other words, it's so ulta-pulta. How can you say, Thomas, that this comes from one text or one place written by one hand? I'm emphasizing that because that's the way that Max Schön emphasized it. Help us with this.
I think here we probably have a bit of a misunderstanding. Maybe I wasn't clear enough in what I presented, because I definitely don't believe that all of the Quran comes from one place and from one time. That's not what I was trying to say. So I was deliberately emphasizing that we're talking about this proto-Quran, which I think I said in the video makes up roughly a third of the Quran as we have it today. But other 2/3 would then obviously would have been added later, and presumably also somewhere else. So that's part one, I would say. So that's definitely not what I'm saying. In regards to Odon's comment, I'm not quite sure where there's the disagreement here, because I think I would agree with pretty much everything Odon has written there. It's totally correct. We're looking at these notes, sort of, that it looks like notes from a preacher, and maybe it was a wandering preacher who was wandering around, and then people noted down what he said. But then why did they note this down? Obviously because they wanted to repeat the words, right? So they wanted to speak them again, presumably during a church service or something like that. So that's precisely the definition of a lectionary. So this is not the entire Quran. This is, as Odon said, it is all over the place. We've all kinds of different texts there and instructions of how to read and what to read and so on. But that's exactly what a lectionary is. So that's why I don't really see a contradiction here. I totally agree with everything Odon says, and I think that it's perfectly explained by looking at this proto-Quran as a lectionary.
Okay, I'm so glad you two guys agree. I'm so glad that the Germans and the French can agree with this, because I didn't think that you were saying that either. And I know that I've talked to Odon subsequently, and I said, I don't think Thomas, you're reading Thomas the right way. I didn't catch that you were saying that. And this absolutely makes sense, what you're saying. And that there is no way that one person would have written all of this or that it was written at one time, or that it was written in one place and in one language. I've never heard you say that. I don't think anybody would say that. In fact, it looks like, even in the examples you have given, that there is this text that comes from that hymn, or this text comes from that lectionary, or this text within surahs. You have different ones that are broken up from different places, different locations, with different reasons. And that's exactly what Odon's saying, is he not? He's saying that these are sermons and proclamations and narratives and exhortations and preparation notes and instructions, which is fascinating, because if you know anything about this book here, this is the Palimpsest from the Sana'a manuscript, and this is the book by Asma Hilali. And she, looking at this undertext, the palimpsest means there's two different texts and two different levels, because one has been washed off and written over top. That's called a palimpsest on animal skin. And the Sana'a manuscript is written on an animal skin. And one of the reasons she believes that this is just students, these are written by students, this is what we call a school text, these are just ignorant students, is because the thing you're just bringing up, that there are notes in it about how to say it or how to preach it. And so because of their notes, this must be a teacher who is writing to a student. So this is never considered to be the Ur-Qur'an, the undertext. It's nothing more than school notes. Well, you're actually saying, no, this is exactly what the Quran. In fact, that's a prime example of exactly what you and Odon are both saying. You're both agreeing on that. She didn't realize this, and that's one reason why what you're bringing up is actually under all the more supports exactly that undertext of the Sana'a manuscript is not a school text at all. This is the preparation notes. This is the preachers. This is actually what they preach. These are the lectionaries from which they're taking it. In this case, more than likely, used to be Aramaic, now it's being put into the Arabic. And of course, as they're putting into Arabic, some words have been brought over, certainly the ideas have brought over. And in some cases, as Gunther Luling said in his book, it's word for word exactly the same as the Christian hymns from which they were borrowed. So fascinating. You're not really coming to blows. The Germans and the French, we can pretty much say, agree on this point, maybe not in every point, but on this point that you do agree. Your last word, anything you want to add to that?
No, I think that sums it up. Yeah. So absolutely, I don't see a disagreement there. Yeah, I hope we're good.
I'm so glad there is no fight going on here. Okay, does that help you, Max? And Odon, you agree with actually Thomas, and you've been one of the first to say so. God bless you both. It's so good to have you again, Thomas. We'll go with some more questions. Hold on, we're going to have some more now of Thomas. This is Jay and Thomas. Meanwhile, over and out.